the present virtual reality games are very rudimentary. I think the graphics aren't very brilliant. I think the lag times are very difficult. I think the actual games themselves and the quality of the games, when compared to other computer games, just aren't very good. I think it's getting by on novelty and hype at the moment.
Welcome to the Oasis. My name's Mike, and today we're going to be going back in time, because right now I feel like we're on the verge of really big things happening in the VR space. It's an incredibly exciting time with new products on the horizon from Oculus, HTC and Valve, and they're going to be pushing the boundaries as to what's possible in VR, and I personally cannot wait. And although these companies are the VR pioneers of today, they weren't the ones pushing VR back in the early 90s. Way before Palmer Luckey was even born, people were trying to make virtual reality a reality. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look back in time at the people that were involved in the early days of VR, and specifically I'm going to be looking at a company called Virtuality. So I hope you guys and girls enjoy this trip back to the future, and without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so Virtuality began as a startup company back in 1985 called W Industries, named after the founder, a fellow Brit, Dr. Jonathan Walden, here in the UK. The company developed its first headsets, trackers and graphics subsystems over 5 years, and finally unveiled their product in 1990 at a computer graphics show in London targeting industry applications. The first two networked virtual reality systems were sold to British Telecoms to experiment with networked telepresence, and other industry clients included Ford, IBM and Mitsubishi. Later in 1991, now under the name of Virtuality, they launched the 1000 series virtual reality systems, and they had two models they referred to as pods. One was for standing experiences and one was for seated VR experiences. Now these pods were aimed at the entertainment market, targeting arcades and theme parks. And at the time, these cutting-edge machines would cost around $65,000 US each. Due to the high purchase price, arcades around the time would charge $5 for just 5 minutes of playtime on the Virtuality. The pods themselves were made of metal and fiberglass and contained an Amiga 3000 at the heart of the machine. The 3 Degrees of Freedom VR headset, which the company referred to as the Visette, contained two 276 by 372 pixels per eye LCD panels, which ran at 20 Hz. These panels provided the player with 60 degrees field of view. The headset also contained 4 speakers and a microphone for multiplayer communication. The Visette headset weighed in at around 3.5 kilograms, which is pretty heavy when you compare it to the 0.5 kilograms weight of the modern-day Oculus Rift. A magnetic transmitter in the ring surrounding the player creates a 3D magnetic field that the player stands within, and the receivers in the controller and the Visette are used to work out what direction the player is looking and where they're pointing the controller. The controller itself featured a trigger button and a button on the top for movement. Virtuality later made 2 revisions of their machine, the 2000 series using an Intel 486 PC, and then later the 3000 series which used an even faster Intel processor. Revolutionary at the time, players could actually play against each other in 4-player local networked VR multiplayer games. The Virtuality 1000 series system was actually my first experience of seeing a VR setup in real life. Previous to that, I'd only seen it on TV shows here that aired in the UK, such as my favourite show, Games Master. And I got to see it in the flesh at London's Trocadero, but sadly, I didn't get to try it out for myself. It was around this time that the movie Lawnmower Man was released, and the hype for VR was at an all-time high. A handful of games were released on the Virtuality system, but the most successful and iconic VR experience back then was a game called Dactyl Nightmare. And here it is today. What I'm playing right now is a recreation of the original game, and this remake was developed by Frederick Enmark. It's called Old School VR, Polygon Nightmare, and is available for free right now on the Oculus Store. By pressing Y on the touch controllers, I can show you the emulated reduced field of view and the reduced visual clarity, which is similar to what players would have experienced in the 90s, albeit at a lower refresh rate. The world of Dactyl Nightmare consists of a few basic-looking platforms. Other players are represented in the world, and your job is simply to shoot them and take them out. But it's not as easy as it sounds though, as the bullets have a fast drop-off rate, and you have to wait a few seconds before you can reload. To spice things up even more, every now and again you'll hear a voice telling you, "Bird is hungry."
Bird is hungry.
And that means the pterodactyl is coming for you. If you're quick, you can blast the creature into oblivion, but if you're too late, you'll get lifted up into the air and dropped at height. Now, I can only imagine how terrifying this must have been for some people trying VR out for the first time. Like this guy here from ABC News.
I think I have to take this helmet off. I'm physically feeling the spacer for a second. Oh my god.
The game spawned a sequel called Dactyl Nightmare 2, Race for the Eggs, which released in 1994 on later Virtuality systems, and a remake was then created called Dactyl Nightmare SP. I've linked to this free remake in the description below if you want to go and check it out yourself on the Oculus Rift. And although gaming was the main focus for Virtuality, they also had other ideas how their technology could be used for business. In 1995, Virtuality partnered with IBM on a desk-based VR system for use in enterprise and business applications called Project Elysium. The Project Elysium kit consisted of the computer with a Virtuality board installed, keyboard, visor, and accessories. And with this revolutionary system, IBM and Virtuality targeted engineering, architectural, medical, entertainment, and education markets. This allowed architects and building firms to see how their projects would look in a virtual space for the first time. However, it failed to get off the ground. Sadly, the Virtuality systems, although inspiring a generation of gamers and dreamers alike, didn't lead to VR taking off, with many people complaining of poor resolution, low refresh rates, and the system causing nausea. With the explosion of home consoles, fewer people were visiting arcades, which ultimately slowed down the sales of the Virtuality systems and ultimately led to bankruptcy, with some of the rights being eventually sold on to other companies. By the end of the 90s, VR was truly dead and buried, leaving many with a sour taste in their mouths and investors with empty pockets.
Eventually,
it'll be as real as real life.
that's the ultimate goal, and still science fiction, like the so-called holodeck of Star Trek's Starship Enterprise. No headgear, no cables, everything there just seems absolutely real.
Computer. Exit holodeck. In program.
That potential is worrisome even to virtual reality's proponents, who say it could one day be used for the ultimate pornography, addiction, violence.
If you are in a virtual world and you have an office model of your office and you pick up a virtual shotgun and blow your boss away because it might be amusing, then does that blur the line between the activities that you do in fantasy and the activities you do in real life?
Okay, so there we have it, guys and girls. That's a little glimpse into the past to see how far virtual reality has come today. If you'd like me to take a look at other players who were involved in virtual reality in the past, such as Nintendo with the Virtual Boy, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I'll make more videos like this one in the future. I'd love to know about your experiences with Virtuality. Did you get to try out one of their machines at a local arcade? Did you get lifted up into the air and then thrown to the ground by a hungry pterodactyl? I'd love to know in the comments down below. Now, there's actually a guy called Simon Marsden here in the UK that has a couple of these Virtuality machines that he's personally restored. Now, maybe I can reach out to him and go check them out, and if that's something that you'd be interested in, then also let me know in the comments down below. If you also wondered what happened to Dr. Jonathan Walden, well, the founder of Virtuality, he's still actually very much around in the VR and AR space with a new company called DigiLens that has a focus on heads-up displays for drivers and other enterprise and military applications. So he's still around today. If you like this video, please leave a like, make sure you're subscribed for all my future content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.